This is a new system for us, and for those of you, I don't know, Ari, you may or may not have seen any of these in the past, or anyone else in chat who doesn't know much about the Cypher system. We're trying it because it's a system that is designed to put all the focus on the narrative and the storytelling and eliminate a lot of the mechanical bloat that comes with D&D. And in general, we feel like it's been sort of good, but like this is still a new experience for us. And so I kind of check in all these tavern talks and just see what we're liking, what we're not liking, how we're feeling about it. So I guess I just kind of want to open it up to the group as far as, you know, how are you guys feeling about Le Cypher system?
You know, as unfamiliar as it is, I will say it's very easy, I feel like, to ease into. I'm still feeling that struggle of like, you got to think a little bit more creatively. You know, a lot of your advantages, you got to think about like, yeah, there's stuff on your character sheet, but you really got to think like, well, how can I twist the current, you know, situation to benefit me in this specific task?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, takes a little out of the box creativity thinking, a little bit of lawyering, you know,
Yeah.
just, it's not things I'm used to thinking of, or just spending XP to get it. You know,
I've been maxed out for 2 sessions on XP, and I need to spend it before next week because I keep forgetting about it, and so
buy some advancements.
you gotta
yeah, I need to. I'll do that.
And it's
I'll-
to buy an advancement. Get the tier 2.
One of the cool things, chat, Ari says she's not familiar with the system. One of the cool things about the Cypher system is that XP is like a currency the players can use to impact the game. So it's not just like tracking your progress or you're like filling up a progress bar. It's like XP can be spent on things other than leveling up. So you can buy progress towards leveling up. You can buy 4 different advancements that change your character sheet. Like you can increase your might or your edge or whatever. But you can also use it to do things like player intrusions, which are ways where you can twist or wrinkle the scene in a way that's either convenient or narratively interesting. You can re-roll, so you can spend it. Think of it like advantage in D&D. You can spend 1 XP in order to re-roll. You can basically take the story elements and turn them into mechanics. A good example was earlier we just heard about Frode has just like added the ability to fight blindfolded. That's because they did like 17 repetitions of a training exercise where Frode had to fight blindfolded, and Cleo was like, by this point Frode's got to be good at it. I'm going to spend 3 XP and put that on my character sheet. And now Frode gets some bonuses when fighting while blindfolded. So it's a really neat add-on, in my opinion, just because it gives you so many options for storytelling. And in the same way, because it's currency, I pay the players when I complicate the scene. So if I add a complication, which we had in our last campaign with D&D, it was just homebrew. But if I add a complication, I have to pay the players in XP for doing that. So it's a really cool way of like balancing the story and making it interesting.
We can also pay the GM or DM 1 XP to say, excuse me, go away.
Oh yeah, to
whenever he
reject
does that.
an intrusion.
Yeah.
That's yeah. You can do exactly what Mike just did with his hand, but with an XP.
Nuh-uh.
That's what the XP does.
Bye-bye.
The XP just like
Bye-bye.
Don't
I think
threaten me with
overall-
a good time. I'm turning that into a GIF after this.
I like
this one,
how it's simpler. There are a lot less mechanical things happening, and that like, but it does definitely require like a mindset shift when you're playing. Like, oh, I have XP that I need to use, or like you're in a scene or in a pickle, and like you have to remember that, oh, I have XP I could use as a resource to influence said scene and take whatever actions.
I feel like one of the things I've been learning as I watch you all play is that it's not enough to just have the system. It's like the mindset shift is almost essential for it to feel valuable.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to combat, which is so streamlined that we can do what would previously have been a 2-session combat in half of a session, like we just did in this last one. But it's like you have to be thinking about things like, well, okay, I want to jump on the high ground, or I want to do like adding all those benefits that will be useful to you. Like you have to be part of the narrative instead of, you know, oh, there's the map and the tokens and I'm going to go here and do the thing. And so I feel like if you don't embrace the mindset, you're going to feel like, well, this is so boring because combat's so quick and I don't have to think about it very much. But it's all the little pieces that you add into the lore of it that like make it neat.
Well, I think it's like the combat shift is like I would describe it as you have to think more creatively about combat, but at the same time, you're almost thinking about combat more practically.
Yeah.
Because you're not limited to thinking of it in D&D character move terms. You're thinking about it in, okay, there's this, it helps, not to compliment Josh too much, it helps that Josh is good at describing scenes. So you already have a good picture in your mind as to what's going on. And then you're like, okay, my character is here. What would my character do? And it's not, what would my character do, because my character could either rage or could use their bonus action to do this or whatever. It's like literally what would my character do? And the Cypher system has a way for you to try to do it, which I think is cool.
Also, when you've played D&D long enough, like a lot of us have, like most people have a good sense of what a turn is going to look like ahead of time. So they're very like disconnected from the scene because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I will say
more engaged.
This, you have to be, right? You have to pay attention to the scene because that's where you're going to get. You don't have modifiers, right? Adding to your role, you just have what's on your character sheet, which might be like one or two things. And in reality, all of it's going to come from is in the moment, the situational things that you can then bring up and say, hey, by the way, I noticed you said that thing was lower than me. I think I should get, make the roll easier for that. Also, it's fire and I made water. I have a water hose, and it keeps you engaged in order to find it's mechanically benefiting to stay engaged.
Yeah.
I think it also has promoted some really cool team attack type moments, which is one of the places where I feel like D&D really lets down the players. Like if you're this team of 4 heroes who have been working together for, a year and you're dungeon delvers and whatever, there's no way that in a fight, all of you is going to split off into the 4 corners and do the one thing your character is good at. You're going to be at the point where you're fighting back to back and the rogue is rolling across the fighter's back so he can get the cool, attack on the other side. And then the sorcerer fires between the two of them to get and you just can't do that in D&D because of the way turns are. But with how flexible the Cypher system is, just in terms of initiative, it's like you can say things like, oh, okay, Frode's gonna walk underwater. I know he will weigh me down because he's made of rock. I'm gonna jump onto his shoulders, and that way I can just focus on attacking instead of having to take any kind of swimming action. Like that kind of stuff is really cool.
To clarify, in Cypher, it's broken down. It's very streamlined, right? Distances aren't in feet. It's literally an abstracted short, like immediate, short, and long.
And then very far, basically.
Right, and you can move and you can do a single action kind of thing, right? There isn't really a heavy focus on the action economy necessarily. And
we're limited by the points spending.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that initiative's freeform. As long as there's no enemies in between your other players' turns, they can work together and do their turns simultaneously or in whatever order they want to, no matter what their initial initiative roll was.
Yeah.
So it helps free it up and make it more creative.
Is there anything that you feel like has felt limiting in the Cypher system now that we've been, we're like 4 sessions in now, plus our mini session, so you're a little bit more experienced with it. Is there anywhere where you feel like the system is failing you, or maybe I as a GM am not setting you up for the right kind of hits or anything like that, where it's like, this feels like a weakness that I wish I wasn't experiencing?
I know,
Go for it, Trevor.
Okay, I was going to say, I think, I like being able to get ciphers and stuff, but I feel like the ones since it's randomized, they're not always applicable to each situation, and so 1, it's like another way to be creative, but 2, sometimes it's just I have a cipher invisibility that wouldn't have really benefited me too much in the last scene, at least that I thought of. And so I guess it's just either getting more, cycling through ciphers more, or getting ciphers that are more applicable to the scenes. But that's me personally.
One of the things. Oh, go ahead, Jake. You go.
Oh, I was just say this is separate from that. I think this isn't a limit. This is just more a thing that is fun about D&D, and just a thing that I don't think Cypher is built for, and that's okay. But there is a certain part of me that really enjoys leveling up a D&D character and getting a cool class feature that you're just like, heck yeah, I can do this thing now. And then that first time you get to do that thing in the next adventure, you're like, oh yeah, this is great. And that's not like a limit of the Cypher system, because there is more creativity that goes into what you can do and stuff like that. But there was a small part of me when I tiered up Willard over the course of this last week, that I was like, oh, there's not really like there's a few little things I was able to add to my character sheet, but it's not like, barbarian's on the mind because that's what my previous campaign character was. But like you get that barbarian feature that you're like, oh yeah, next combat, I'm so excited to use that, but it's just a difference, not necessarily a weakness.
I got some features I was excited for, and I went through the future ones too, and I'm like, oh, these look cool.
Yeah, just to confirm, you did check that for the stuff that you're like focus and your
yes, I did.
Your okay, just making sure
I did,
because you do get some stuff, but I totally hear you. If it doesn't feel like it's enough, that's great. I get it.
It's not. Maybe that it's not that it doesn't feel like it's enough. It's just. Maybe it's simply the goopy goblin gamer brain that I have. That's just like, I like it when I get feature that makes my attack go bigger. And it's like that's not the type of abilities that are in Cypher system, which I think is good in its own way. But
just to throw this out there, instead of leveling up, you could do what you're talking about for cheaper by spending 3 XP for long-term benefits for your character. Like developing the storm cloud or the storm aura around a rage, that's totally a 3 XP buy.
Sure.
Because you're taking an ability you already have and you're just upping it. There's no reason why you couldn't decide something like, hey, he wants to be able to throw 2 knives at a time because he's been throwing knives a bunch, or whatever. And so like those are things that you could look into as well. But I'm not trying to like solve all the problems. I thought of that. I'm like, I want Jake to get to goopy goblin gamer brain. I want him to get to do that.
No, yeah, that's a great idea. I think thinking about more creative ways to utilize those XP buys is a good way for me to try to develop my gameplay in the Cypher system a bit more.
I was vibing with what Trevor was saying. I think one of the challenges that I have felt in the Cypher system is how to deliver ciphers to you as players in ways that are not like, hey, here's a cipher. You know what I mean? Like they're supposed to occur randomly in the world. And I feel like some of this is my fault in that I think the way I've manifested them in the world makes it difficult for me to give them to you quickly. And I've wondered if I need to like retcon a different version of them so that it's easier to hand them out. For example, if magic got trapped in items and all of your ciphers were manifest ciphers instead of subtle ciphers, then it's like you could be walking along and you could notice weird sensations around you but have to find the thing that they're coming out of. Like, oh, that pebble is magic or that whatever is magic. But because it's like, well, here's a glowing ball of magic, it's like, when they're there. It's pretty hard to miss them.
So, I did notice that a little bit when I was listening back to the last episode when I was leaving the chill out tent. It's like, Armis, you leave the chill out tent. As you do, we look down and there's a cipher there. It's like, oh shit, I'll grab that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have a cipher.
Yeah, you have a cipher.
It's not a problem I necessarily have a great solution for yet, but it's something that I've been thinking about.
Yeah, don't worry. And it's, we could workshop it,
I mean, we're all learning and making it up. It's not like I'm like, oh, I failed the group. I just, that's one of my observations. Cleo, I think I cut you off. Were you saying something when I started talking?
I forgot.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to add the build to something, but it's not worth it. I don't remember.
Challenges with the Cypher system or things that are tough about the thing. Jake was talking about leveling up, long-term abilities.
I think it's also worth mentioning, this isn't what I was going to say before, but it just made me think of something. That leveling up in Cypher, the tiering up, isn't also as like crazy as leveling up in, say, like D&D, where it's a lot more rigid and mechanical based. And there's just like, all right, here's like 8 things you get, plus you also get your class features, plus you also get 7 things to choose from here. There's a little bit of that, but it's a lot more meant to be like, okay, you're generally better at the thing you chose initially, and you only get to do it 6 times, right? Like, there's only tier 1 through 6. Yeah. And that's because you're intended to spend your points on other things. Like, there are plenty of other things to spend your experience on to help increase. If you're a numbers person, I think there are things you can increase that aren't technically advancements that still increase your stats, right? And just really stacking those skills. I mean, that's got to be a good way to play, right? Oh, and I now remember what I was going to bring up, which was something completely unrelated and not helpful to the conversation. I was going to say, I really love GGGB, Goopy Goblin Gamer Brain.
Oh,
Thank you. It's not my original creation. There's a YouTuber named Nakey Jakey who invented that term. And,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I do want to speak to what Cleo and Jake said in that in D&D it all happened at once, but with the Cypher system, the way the advancements are, like you have the 4 things that you're doing along the way.
Oh, right. It's like incremental. To getting to singular level. It isn't like, oh, you got your XP, you're level 2, now you get all your things. It's as you're going to level 2, you're picking up parts of being level 2.
Yeah.
I also get the impression that the Cypher system assumes you show up a hero, and D&D does not. Like, D&D has to give you that many things every time you level up, because at level 1, like, a rat can kill you if it sneezes too hard. And I feel like in the Cypher system, you show up pretty rockin', and it's just like the tier system is just sort of like you getting to refine your abilities throughout the game. Versus like in D&D, it's like you have no abilities, but if you can survive long enough, you'll get some. So that I think that could be a piece of it too.
I always forget that that's a part of D&D because I'm so used to playing in these campaigns where we all start at level 3 or level 4, just because that's like, it's not worth playing through levels 1 through 2 because you can't do much. I think that's kind of
That's the reasoning too, right? Like it's not worth it unless you're really edging for that 0 to hero moment,
or you're a new player and you want to like progressively learn D&D.
True.
Sure.
I feel like D&D falls apart around level 12 as far as like where the abilities are worth it and like when the game gets too bogged down. And I'm kind of interested as we power up your characters in Cypher to see if the same thing happens. Because maybe you need less of a progression just for the game to hold up at high level. I don't know. So maybe that's kind of an interesting possibility too. Anything else about the Cypher system before we start brainstorming cool magics? No.
I'm still liking it. That's the main thing.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's kind of the fact that we're playing in it is no longer the first thing in my mind, if that makes sense. I feel like the first couple sessions I had to have the system in the forefront of my mind because it was very like, okay, there's these new rules. I can't just kind of go autopilot as far as the rules go. But I feel like last session, I felt like it was just easier to kind of focus on the role play, focus on the decision making, and not feel like I have to like almost be worrying about the system.
And to cap that off, I will say it made it a lot easier. I don't know about you guys, but somebody ran this little one shot for me that made it infinitely easier to like get a feel of the system before we started this campaign.
That was nice. Whoever did that, they were a nice person.
Yeah, they were awesome. Yeah.
They sound cool.
Much cooler than you, Josh.
They sound like it would be totally worth a Twitch sub for the effort they put in or whatever.
Oh, it would.
Yeah, even just like a little Prime sub, just a sub.
Get rid of ads too.
No more ad purgatory.
I thought of one more question for you guys, which is how do you feel about the balance of points available in your pools? One thing that I have no context for is like how many challenges is it before you're running on fumes, or like for a certain monster level, it's like I can think, okay, well they should be able to beat this or not beat this, but I don't have an idea of how spent you are at the end of those encounters. Do you feel like the challenges you're facing are too much or too little, or what do you think?
That was going to be my only potential, maybe not even a gripe, but like the one thing that I have right now is that I've never gotten, I don't think, close to 0 on my stuff. I don't think I've used too many like abilities or whatnot that do that, and I haven't gotten hit too hard. But we haven't run into too many crazy things, but my stockpiles have usually been pretty hardy. Like at most, maybe I've gotten halfway down on something.
It also feels like this kind of system lends itself more to endurance rather than like a singular encounter kind of like stretching your resources. It surely could, but it feels like one encounter never seems to be enough, even if it is a struggle, because we can only like commit so many points, to something at a time, unless it's like just damaging us, right? Unless it's straight damage. But it definitely seems like an endurance thing, and we just haven't been in something without the ability to do a long rest afterwards. Or I guess there is no long rest, but
I mean, there's an equivalent, but you have a lot of steps before that.
Right.
Like, because you have the one action, then it's 10 minutes, then it's 1 hour, and then it's
you
10
all
hours.
do. I don't. But that's neither here nor there.
I think I've gotten fairly low on might and intellect, since might is the physical damage you take, and I think I've gotten maybe to like 5 or something, and then intellect is what I use. Like, I have to spend intellect points to use my abilities, so that's been somewhat depleted, like maybe half. But I worry that if we're in like a deadly combat, let's say, and then like my might and speed get to 0 in some like horrific encounter, like my intellect is already going to be at close to 0, because that's what I'm spending points for my abilities for. And so because it goes like might, then speed, then intellect, so it's like I wouldn't get that third sort of buffer zone of living, because that's what I'm spending my points on. But it might be designed that way, and we haven't gotten low enough for that to matter yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember Willard getting pretty low during the simulation of the bridge, but besides that, Willard has not been anywhere close to being in danger with his points so far.
Does it make the fights feel cheap? Like, do you need harder challenges for the story to feel like the stakes are real?
No, because I think last combat, the real stakes were the crowd, and the circus, and us not messing up for our job security. So even if it wasn't like we're gonna die, it was like we have to keep other people from dying, and we also have to do a good job so that like people think that it's worth having us around. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes weren't necessarily life and death, but they still were high stakes, right?
Yeah. It was a very stressful situation.
It was
Just
somebody
'cause
else's life or death.
Yeah.
Got
Just
it.
because it's not our lives at stake doesn't mean that you haven't created good tension with other people's lives. And all of us want to clear a record, so we want to do a good job for Jasper. Yeah. And if we let people die, Jasper's gonna not like us.
And to be fair, like, story-wise, it's not like we've hit moments that I feel like our characters should come out of it looking like, a Pyrrhic victory. We've always done, like, crazily, maybe not the most efficient or effectively, but we've done it, right? Because we're people of power, right? We were hired for a reason. And we come out of it with bruises, but the real struggle is not necessarily that we're dying, but that we're doing a good job and that we're saving people. And that's been the really stressful part as the character. It's been like, I gotta do good.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, let's talk about Cyphers. The namesake of the system is that you are constantly, or you should be constantly, cycling through. Hey, bestie, we got Grubug in the chat. The namesake of the system is the Cypher, and essentially we should be constantly cycling through consumable one-time use abilities. And I have a bunch of charts to randomly generate these when they come up in-game, but I thought it might be more fun, and it kind of answers one of the tensions Trevor raised earlier of like they don't always feel relevant. If you guys want to, if we all kind of come up with what those cool random one-off abilities are, and then I can just make a chart of those and, seed them into the game as time goes on. And we would just roll for what power level you get when you get that ability. Is that something that you guys think would be beneficial or fun to do, or is that something we should just skip and move on? What's the vibe?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I
trying
could go
it.
for that.
Cool.
You just gotta think on what are some good one-off abilities.
Yeah. So the way that I brainstorm them, just to give you an idea of what's in my random chart, what's in my camera bag, what's in my Cypher chart, is I roll for what derivative of magic it will be. So that's like transmutation, divination, evocation, like the 8 schools in D&D, except I added time and luck to them. So the Cypher will affect one of those domains, shall we say, and then I roll for what it does to that thing. So I have like suspends, enhances, reduces, that kind of. So like, for example, you could roll something that enhances divination. That tells me that you're going to get some kind of second sight or extrasensory perception. Or we might roll something that suspends evocation, which is actually Frode got one of those. Some energy source, you can just lock it, in stasis. So that's how I've been coming up with them, but they don't need to be that way. They could be any ability. In fact, Cyphers don't even have to be arcane. Anything that is a one-time consumable use thing is a Cypher. So you could be looking at something like a smoke bomb would be a Cypher. It's like once you throw it, it's consumed and there was smoke there. So anything like that you think of, or cool artifice by, Edison or whatever, like those would all be options if any of that sticks
Key
out to
lime
you.
pie.
All
What?
right.
A key lime pie.
So I got a few off the top of my head, right?
Yep.
Animation, right? Animate something. Maybe the level determines the size of the thing you can animate or for how long.
Okay.
A gust of wind, right? That the level of it could determine how much force or how high the roll has to be to resist it. All right, we got growth. Maybe you can do like accelerate growth on like a plant or anything organic.
Sure. So like accelerating natural growth, not necessarily like sizing up something.
Right.
Okay.
And how much you accelerate magnetism.
Magnetism's cool.
Maybe like kind of like a gravity thing where like things are attracted to it.
I like magnetism, and maybe also a magnetism where you pick the thing that you attract. So like magnets attract magnetic fields, right? But you could be like, I'm going to be magnetic to organic life, or something like that, or I'm going to be magnetic to water or something like that. Magnetism where you determine the target. That's a cool one.
I have a dumb one after Cleo.
That's fine.
Sorry, I was just rapid firing.
Cleo's just going.
Yeah, if you let me go.
What's your dumb
go.
one, Jake?
Okay, what if it's a Cypher that when you use it, it sort of appears like a breath mint and you eat it, and it makes your breath really fresh, but it also enhances your persuasion abilities for the duration of the Cypher.
Breath freshening to enhance persuasion tasks. To ease persuasion tasks.
Yeah.
Is Holy Hand Grenade a possibility? Absolutely.
I think so.
I would say maybe what you could do is you could make an item combust. So like, and the level determines the fuse time. So it's like, how long do you have to get away? But you could, what would that be called? Like impart combustion. That's what I'm gonna write for that. The one thing about Cyphers is they're always activated by touch or centered on you. So like if you're gonna summon a lightning strike, you touch a thing and it gets struck by lightning. As opposed to like in D&D, there are spells where you like choose an item within or an area within 60 feet or whatever. So for that one, Holy Hand Grenade, you'd have to have an item and put the grenade in it and then throw it. But I love impart combustion. What a fun idea.
What about like tremor, essentially, where you like turn the ground in front of you into like difficult terrain or something like that?
Oh, interesting. So like almost like creating like quicksand or mud or something like that. We could just say what would you call that? Maybe like hindering terrain, and then maybe the player gets to say how it's hindering, so that in that moment you get to like narratively flavor that. I feel the same way about the breath mint thing, where it's like maybe it just enhances your persuasion, but you get to say how.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fair.
Chat says it's like earthbending. That is like earthbending.
True.
Along that same thought, I was thinking like tunneling, but like quantum tunneling. Be like you can choose a point, and depending maybe on the level, how far that away it is, and you can just go straight through anything.
That's cool.
it just opens like this. It doesn't destroy the material. It just opens a temporary hole. Like it does like some weird warping effect where you could just walk in a straight line, and then once it's done, everything goes back to the way it was.
It's like Wraith in Apex Legends, if anyone plays that. Yeah.
Well, way to break down my awesome creative idea into Apex Legends.
I'm sorry. Goopy Goblin Gamer Brain, we already mentioned that. What if, I know Cleo mentioned like animate object kind of earlier, but what if it was like you could animate an object into sort of like what Wash is, what Jeb used to do a lot, like kind of create it into a little scout that you can like see, like you can see your eyes through for like the duration of the Cypher, like a little spy bot, little scout bot.
Kind of like in Artificer's toys.
Yeah.
So maybe like create mobile sensor.
Sure. Yeah.
As a name for that.
Yeah.
Century.
And we could say like duration and distance are determined by level.
Sure, that makes sense.
Like how far away it can go from you.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the player could flavor how they want that to play out.
Yeah.
You know, with how it looks and everything.
We could do some sort of like alarm or tripwire cipher.
I mean,
like.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Create an alarm is a good one.
Like if movement is detected at said point, alarm goes off or something.
It could be an immediate area around you, and you could set it the duration of how long the alarm lasts for the level.
So maybe the level determines like the duration and the difficulty of stealth to get past it.
Right. And also you could probably touch something in its immediate area around that thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. I don't. Well, no, because ciphers are immediate, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking like a luck cipher where it's like you could re-roll for however level it is. Like, so if it's level 1, you can only re-roll once. If it's level 3 and so on. But that would be like you're expending it, not using it all at once.
Yeah, I almost feel like if you just wanted to make something lucky, it would just ease the task. Like you could just ease a task by X amount of steps, and it's like that's you know, good luck.
True.
Yeah.
That seems a little cheap though. I feel like. I mean, like it would be like a quick and easy one though. And it's not. I wouldn't say it's not. You know, wrong, but not necessarily the funnest.
Sure.
Maybe. Okay. I mean, like at this point, you could just look at some D&D spells, right?
You could absolutely.
I started doing that too.
You could absolutely turn D&D spells into ciphers. Mike, what you got?
Well, that's just me. I feel like anything I am trying to think of is just either a ripoff of My Hero Academia or just a general kind of D&D spell or something like that.
Chat
That's
says
so good.
Chat says mind manipulation. I could see something like the command spell where like the level determines the level of NPC you can give a command to.
Yeah. Or suggestion.
How about adjust viscosity?
Ooh, that's cool.
Change how thick something is.
Yeah. Duration determined by level.
Touch someone and just coagulate all their blood in their body.
I was about to say there are some like very dark things you could use that for. I feel like you could just melt somebody. You could be like viscosity, water, and they're just like, oh.
We did a suspend time one. Armis got already. I wonder if you could do like a
speed up time.
Yeah, maybe increase time where it's like you can take, you know, level amount of actions on a single turn.
It would be a crazy one. What if you had like sort of like, I don't know what you would call it, like, because it'd be like a stasis, but it would be something long term and unbreakable. But so that's like one, the benefit if you wanted to keep it away and hidden for long terms, but also like if you ever wanted it back, you can't until it's done. Like almost like a coma of like you could either put a thing or someone in stasis and it's like that for like days or weeks. irreversibly.
Maybe we could call that like temporal seal, where it like vanishes from the timeline and doesn't reappear until level duration of time has passed.
Ooh, yeah.
So it just like
That's cool.
winks out of existence and then comes back right where it was.
I think that would be
like that.
interesting.
Level determines how long until it reappears.
And maybe put that one at the like top or bottom of your probability. You know, because it would be powerful, but I feel like it would have niche use.
Yeah.
Mike mentioning My Hero Academia just makes me think of like, how could I make best genists powers into a Cypher? Like,
I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. There's no reason you can't take cool abilities from other stuff and use them.
Yeah.
I mean,
there-
even the spells in D&D are almost all taken from other myths, you know, and they
Yeah.
just are like, we've just codified it into the rulebook.
What
Is there a
about,
disguise one already?
Like to increase or decrease your size?
no disguise.
Disguise.
Oh, no, there isn't a disguise one.
I
like
think
that.
that'd be a neat one. Like you choose a thing or persona, and you are like 100% that thing. Like look, voice, everything, but it's like for a short amount of time depending on the level.
Yeah, like and your level maybe determines the difficulty of seeing through the illusion.
Sure.
I like that Cleo often like starts her pitches off with like, and nothing can stop you. This is it's unstoppable for the duration. The duration is determined by the level. And then Josh is always like, and the level determines how hard it is to stop it. And then Cleo's like, okay.
I mean, you can overrule me, but do we need some unstoppable ciphers? It is cool to have unstoppable
I don't know
ones.
if we need
I
unstoppable ciphers.
didn't
It's just
intend
funny.
to do that.
The problem is for every cool ability that becomes available to the players, I make that ability available to the villains.
I
So
was trying to make like a trade-off. Like if you put something in stasis but it's irreversible, I thought that would be a trade-off of like, well now like yeah, it might be hidden or something, but like I can't do anything with that until that time elapses.
Yeah.
chat
Oh,
suggests like a spirit animal companion.
like
I-
a familiar?
Yeah, I wonder if it could be like, rather than having a familiar with you, maybe the level determines how much extra damage they do, but you don't have to have them hit. So it's like it's a one-turn use or an instant use because it's consumable, but it's like a spirit just materializes out of the ethereal plane, does an attack, and then kind of vanishes again. And
That's
you can
cool.
flavor it however you want.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever play the 2018 God of War game?
No.
There's some attack abilities like that where it's like ethereal, like just for one attack, ethereal animals go out.
GGGB strikes again.
Yeah. I just compare everything to video games I've played before.
I don't know if it's in the list, but yeah, I think it was during the first session we had that Storm Surge cipher that was cool.
That was cool. I could add that. Yeah.
Not used at the right time.
Summon Storm level determines intensity and duration.
Oh yeah, that was in the Camp Blunder.
What
Yeah.
about read history, where it's like you can touch an object and you can see
Ooh.
level amount of days or years into its
Yeah.
past.
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Or perhaps even just details, right? Like the higher level, the more you know about it.
How about like speak with animals or just speak with any sentient object? Like one question, two questions, or however many. Like level determines the amount of questions you could ask.
Yeah, speak with animal level determines questions you can ask. That's cool. And
Or just length.
speak with
sorry.
dead level determines.
What about like something that maybe has to do with luck, but it's like being able to see probabilities of things? Like maybe if there's an action that
Maybe
like
there needs to be a rod.
oh maybe like if if the GM is kind of like saying, okay, try this. I'm not going to tell you what you have to roll though. Maybe it's something that allows like your in canon, it allows your character to like kind of see the probabilities of how things will happen and whatnot. And the meta
Mass
benefit
symbols
is being
appear.
able to see what your what you're trying to roll.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe the level determines. What does the level determine in that case? Does it determine how accurate the answer is? But no, because I don't want to lie to you if you have a low level version of it. You know what I mean? Like it should be
Sure.
awesome the whole time. Maybe the level determines how many steps you can ask about. So
maybe.
see
How far into the
possibilities,
future?
like a level 2, for
Yeah.
example, you're like, okay, if I go left, what happens? And then I tell you, and then you can pick one of those and say, if I do this next, what happens? And like you can follow the timeline down.
Yeah, but if it's level 1, it's just you get to ask what that one time. If it's level
Right.
4, you can kind of keep going down the
That's
line.
interesting.
I like that.
Okay. What else?
Telepathic communication.
Yeah, that's cool. Well,
Speaking other people's
Yeah.
minds.
maybe telepathy with a duration determined by the level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like telepathy abilities that are limited by distance because it's so hard to keep track of how far away everybody is from each
Oh
other.
yeah. Either duration or number of statements made.
Yeah.
Like message. You have 20 words.
Yeah. Okay, this is a great list. Let's land it here because we got to have time for our advanced training from Mike.
Yeah.